Welcome to types of error. So there are essentially two ways that a hypothesis can go wrong. In type 1 error, um, the null hypothesis is actually correct. But our sample is, sorry, the null hypothesis is actually correct, but our sample is surprising enough that we conclude the alternative hypothesis true. So, but our sample is surprising enough that we conclude the alternative hypothesis. So essentially, the significance level is our willingness to have type 1 error, because the significance level is sort of what we deem surprising if the null hypothesis were true. So the probability of making a type 1 error, or of having type 1 error, is equal to the significance level. So again, in other language for type 1 error, we reject H naught due to a surprising sample. But the null hypothesis is actually true. Okay, so that's type 1 error. Type 2 error is the opposite. So the null hypothesis is false, the alternative hypothesis is actually true, but our sample doesn't lead us to draw that conclusion. So in type 2 error, the alternative hypothesis is true, but our sample is not surprising enough to draw that conclusion. So it could be that the true mean, say, is just a little bit above our null hypothesis. And so we could have a sample that is very representative of the true mean, but is not far enough away from our original assumption to prove anything. So again, in the language we had, we fail to reject the null hypothesis. Again, this is due to the sample not being surprising. HA, the alternative hypothesis, is actually true. So in the video on significance level, we talked about using the significance level to kind of is based off of sort of the consequences of the different errors. So since the significance level is the probability of making a type 1 error, the more serious the consequences of a type 1 error, then the lower we should make the significance level. So note, the more serious the consequences of type 1 error, the lower we should make the significance level. On the other hand, the more serious the consequences of type 2 error, the higher we should make the significance level. So these work against each other. So it really just depends on which is the more serious error. Is type 1 error very serious? Then take a very low significance level. On the other hand, if type 1 error is not serious and type 2 error is, then we want to take a high significance level. So this completely depends on the context of the problem, the researchers involved with the problem, and what they deem to be serious. But this is type 1 and type 2 error.